Thank you, Joan, for agreeing to swap seats with me for the final event in the series. What is that like, actually? Because you've been the host for the previous 9 episodes.
Well, Bernadette, thank you very much, but it feels really weird, I must say. And I'm so glad that it's you that I've swapped seats with.
You're too kind, Joan. You set a high bar for me to meet. I will try my best. But moving on to this finale, um, what do you, for the people who haven't joined us for the end of any of the events, welcome. How would you explain what we were aiming for this event and what should people expect?
Well, I can hardly believe that this is the 10th event out of a series of 10 events. It's just incredible. And we have had the most amazing experts sharing their knowledge, their wealth of expertise with us. So what we've tried to do is just highlight and showcase some of the clips which are pertinent, relevant, or startling, shocking, raise awareness, so that people can then go and explore this great resource that we've now developed of these 9 events and look in more detail at what those experts said. So that was what we were hoping to do. Yes, we've called it the finale. Hopefully it's not the finale, it's just the beginning. And yeah, there's just so much knowledge that we've been able to gather that we just want people to go and look at that.
Joe, you've put that so eloquently. Absolutely, that's what we're trying to do in the event today. We are going to kick off talking about the importance of food. We had incredible speakers who put across a richness of points, but as Joan mentioned, we're not going to be able to cover everything. So if you would like to watch the events in full, we can give you the link to our YouTube channel and you can subscribe and check out those videos later on. But as we said, we're going to start with the importance of food. We had the fantastic Grace Franchapur, MPE, Shola Aladapo. We also had Douglas 24 talking to us about type 2 diabetes remission, or some people know it as reversal. And we also had a fantastic festive special where we had a number of amazing speakers going through some tips. So let's launch into those clips, and then we're going to come back and have a discussion with Joan.
So, some people think that they need to have diabetic foods, and I hate to use that word diabetic, and I apologize, but they feel I need to have diabetic jam, I need to have diabetic honey, or that type of foods. Do people need special foods if they're living with diabetes?
No, they don't. They need to eat a healthy diet, and we need to look specifically at their diet, what they're eating, when they're eating it, and compare that with the medication and or insulin. So a diabetes specialist dietitian would actually look at a food diary, from the patients, and then help them to curtail the amount of carbohydrates to ensure that they're not having too many starchy foods or sweet foods that are actually, turned into sugar in the bloodstream. So they don't need to have special foods. They can have healthy foods, normal foods, but in moderation.
So the first thing I think it's really important under what we eat is just to say that there is nothing wrong with our foods. Joan, as a dietitian of over 25 years, we get to the point where I'm tired of hearing people saying, the food from Africa and the Caribbean, there's something wrong with them. Our foods are fantastic. We are blessed with a plethora of lovely, starches and carbohydrates, fantastic vegetables and fruits. So we should be enjoying those traditional foods. Nothing wrong with them at all, but it's actually what we need is balance. So we want to balance those amazing foods because we want to manage our weight. So you can enjoy your traditional foods.
What comes after? It's the afters, it's the desserts, it's the puddings.
Yes. I mean, they
that's
do
not
look
at the
nice.
end of it, is it?
They do look nice.
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, education is so important, isn't it? You know, knowledge is the foundation of everything. So understanding, you know, how some of these foods may have been made and what they contain would be quite helpful. Okay. Because I can see there's some fried food there, there's some cakes, and I can see there's cream on one of the cakes there. And I think that what's really important is we've got to understand there's got to be a balance in your life. You know, when you have a lot of people live with diabetes for a long time, yeah. So there's got to be a balance, and there's no special diet for someone living with diabetes. There's no can have list or can't have list. It's all about knowledge, as I've said before. So long story short, what I'm saying is, if you do want to have a dessert, you can have a dessert. But how much dessert are you going to choose to have?
Not all of those
There
on
you
the
go.
same plate.
There you go. If you do choose to have all of those, you know, you are going to be really full. So yeah, it's portion control, moderation, and finding that balance. But Joan, what I would say is sometimes we do have to think about our own personal goals, and we have to make decisions that support your own goals and your own health and well-being. So there may come a time over the festive season where you think to yourself, do I really want that? Do I really need that? Or am I happy to just pass on this one?
And the key is that you are able to be supported to lose weight, because it is the weight that you lose that will increase your chances of remission. So when people are trying to lose weight, the first thing that they try to do is perhaps just reduce the amount of food that they eat. So without any fancy named diet at all, if you are able to reduce the amount of food that you're eating, then you'll be able to lose weight. So in this particular picture, I've shown you a plate of rice and peas. If you are able to reduce the amount of the rice, you are able to reduce the amount of the fish that you're having, and then you add more vegetables, definitely the amount of calories that you're eating will be less. The amount of carbohydrates you're eating will be less, and that will help you if you're doing that consistently to lose weight. But many people prefer to approach weight loss by following a specific diet. And in these circumstances, it is important that once you've chosen the diet, you get the support that you need to be able to follow it safely.
I wanted to start, Joan, by asking you, our first 4 events obviously had a strong food and lifestyle focus. And we kicked off the series in that way. But I'd love to hear more about why you felt that was an important aspect to focus on at the start.
Yes, Bernadette, I agree with you that, you know, what wonderful experts that we've been privileged to share this platform with. And yes, we had to start with food because food is so fundamental to diabetes, whatever aspect of diabetes you're talking about. So if you're talking about being at risk of diabetes, if you're talking about living with diabetes, if you're talking about trying to put your diabetes into reversal or remission, then food is going to be fundamental to that. And I think one of the messages, even from those short clips that we got, was about balance. No food being off the table, excuse the pun, but having a balance to what you're going to do. The other thing that I thought was really striking from our experts was, what is your specific goal? So for somebody who's at risk, you may have a different goal. Your goal may be to try to reduce weight. If you're living with diabetes, your goal may be to try and reduce your blood glucose, and therefore you may focus on a different aspect. And again, you may also be wanting to try, if possible, to put your diabetes into reversal or into remission. So again, you're going to have a different aspect that you'll concentrate on.
And Eloise made a fantastic point, which is diabetes for many is a condition that they're living with for a long period of time. So fad diets are not going to work. It needs to be something that they can people can incorporate into their life that still makes their life enjoyable. And I think that's an important aspect to bear in mind. Another thing that was mentioned in the clips is there's a perception that food from African and Caribbean culture is inherently unhealthy, and people with diabetes shouldn't eat that type of food. What's your thoughts about that?
I want to dispel that myth. It's absolutely a myth. You and I, Shola, Eloise, Douglas, healthcare professionals from Africa and the Caribbean know this. This is not the case. I mentioned the word balance. It is about balance. So that may be the portion that you're eating. It may be the way that you prepare the foods. But we have nutritionally complete and healthy foods. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with our traditional foods.
Absolutely. And I will mention again, as one of the co-authors of the award-winning Carbs and Cows World Foods book, which really is the first well-known resource that gives that information about foods from different cuisines. You've really helped people, and we've heard this in people who've interacted at our previous events. You've helped people have a better understanding of how to incorporate their traditional foods into a diet that works to improve their diabetes control as well.
Well, I think what I would sum up and say is be inquisitive, be curious about that person in front of you, their culture, their family, their circumstances, and help that inform how you work with that person to improve their health. So that may take the form of a particular population in a particular area, and that particular population may be eating certain types of foods. Get to know what those foods are, show a bit of interest in that, because people are very willing to meet you at least halfway. And if you ask about the foods that somebody's eating, don't be surprised if they actually bring some of the food in and literally share that food with you. But you will get a better understanding, because your understanding of what that person might be eating may be completely different to what they're actually doing at home. So be inquisitive. It will help you in terms of engagement with that person. It will help you in terms of your clinical practice. So as a healthcare professional, I think that is something that will enhance your practice.
I think I love the tip, Joan, and I see it as a positive. If people are going to bring in their food from all around the world for me to try, I'm definitely not going to say no. So thank you so much for that, Joan. So we've before we really finish up the segment about food and lifestyle, we're going to go into a quiz. It'd be very interesting. You'll see a little box pop up on your screen or your phone. We'd love to get involved, and we're going to be answering some of your questions as well. So we're going to be launching into the quiz. First question. What is the generally recommended HbA1c target for people without complications? And that's in millimole per mole. So we have 48 to 53, 53 to 58, or 58 to 64. So keep voting. Joan, I think this is going to be an interesting one to see how people vote. And we're just going to leave it for a few more seconds and we'll see what people have said. So we've got a clear winner there at 48 to 53. I wonder if you want to comment on that, Joan.
Yeah, so thanks, Bernadette, and apologies, everyone. Do not adjust your spectacles. We're having a bit of technical difficulty, but I hope that's not spoiling your enjoyment of the event this evening. So yes, 71% of people said 48 to 53. Absolutely, if somebody is living with diabetes, not having any complications, we want the level of HbA1c to be as low or as close to normal as possible. So it may be that you would be aiming for even a lower target than this. We call it targets as healthcare professionals. People are going to call it goals. So their aim, I would recommend, especially if they're living without complications and it's within the first few years of diagnosis, try and get it lower than this. But absolutely, generally. Sorry, Bernadette.
And one of the questions that we get often is, to what extent should people living with diabetes and their healthcare team be setting these goals together?
completely. It is all about individualized targets. I'm sorry to use the word targets, but aims. Because, as I've said, as an individual, it may be appropriate for you to aim for a level beneath 48 millimoles per mole. And it may be appropriate for you to aim to get it to around 58 millimoles per mole. Why? Because if you're coming from a level of 75, let's say, for argument's sake, aiming for 58 as a long-term goal will be a success for you, but also reduce your risk of further complications. So any reduction in HbA1c is going to be a benefit to you, but that difference, that reduction is going to vary for each person.
Absolutely. And I like that emphasis. It's absolutely together, healthcare professional team and the person. So moving on to the next question, we had a fantastic talk by Douglas 24 from Diabetes UK. So type 2 diabetes remission is not yet medically recognized. True or false? Keep voting. We've got about 15 seconds left to vote. This is going to be very interesting to see because we know it's quite a hot topic at the moment. And we've done a little bit of work on that as part of the series. So let's just see how people voted. I'm very pleased with the results. 80% of people said that's false. I don't know if you'd like to expand on that, Joan.
Well, I mean, it was a sea change, really, when the direct study was published and showed us within the diabetes community, and by that I mean healthcare professionals and people living with diabetes, that diabetes can be put into remission. And we're very careful about the terms that we use. So as anybody who watched Douglas's fantastic talk in that event would know, we're not talking about cure, we're talking about remission. And so it was such a sea change, it really was, that you could actually put your blood glucose levels back to normal, inverted commas, by a significant weight loss. And by doing so, hopefully reduce your risk of further complications or of complications in the future. So it is something that was not medically recognized prior to the direct study being published, now is recognized, but maybe not fully out there in terms of everybody being aware. Certainly in certain communities that I've had contact with, the thing about diabetes remission is unknown. And I think one of the things that we want to achieve with this series of events that we've had in the webinars is that people would know this, at least to know this, because if you have the knowledge, then you have the option to make the choice to perhaps try and do this for yourself or for a member of your family. So absolutely, yes, it's recognized, and we want to raise awareness of it.
And we'll also share at the end of the event the fantastic consensus statement that Douglas was part of, if anyone wants to read more. And we also have the full event on YouTube, which we'll send a link to our channel at the end of this event. So moving swiftly on to the next question. To avoid diabetes, you should only focus your efforts on what you eat. Focusing on the only focus your efforts on what you eat. Is that true or false? It's a big clue. I'm making it too easy. But we had, in the clips that we saw, we had Eloise Simpson, we had Douglas, and we had the fantastic Shola Oladipo talking about food and lifestyle. So I've made it too easy, as you'll see by the voting results, which are 100%.
Oh my goodness.
But Joan, I wondered if you want to expand on that, please.
Is there anything for me to say, Bernadette?
I really
have such a knowledgeable audience. Well, healthcare professionals, people living with diabetes, you're all so knowledgeable. This is really about prevention. And we were trying to, again, raise awareness. We did focus very heavily in the first few events on food, because food is very fundamental to diabetes, blood glucose levels, and so on. But we shouldn't forget other things that can play a part. And one of the major things being activity. And so it's absolutely important that people are aware of the activity they're doing, and the fact that we're not talking about putting on the lycra and going to the gym, that there are many different options, and we highlighted that as well. So again, to use the studies, the prevention studies were about around 7% weight loss, but 150 minutes of exercise per week, which sounds like a huge amount, but it can be broken down into 10-minute chunks of activity is really what we would like to call it. So yeah, exceptionally knowledgeable, everybody. And I hope that's because everybody's been tuning in and learning from the events.
Absolutely. And I love the point that you made and our previous speakers made. It's not about exercise going to the gym, it's physical activity. And I think sometimes when people go to see the healthcare professional, they talk about exercise, it can make people a bit worried. I personally don't like going into the gym to exercise on machines, but I think physical activity is a great way to approach it. Right, we're moving on to the next section. Thank you so much for taking part in the quiz.